A Laplander woman, born under seemingly dark circumstances, becomes a were-reindeer under the light of a full moon in the 1952 Finnish horror film, The White Reindeer. And that's the movie we're dusting off this week on Movie Bones.
Syntynyt oli hangelle, kasvoi tyttö heinäkenkä, niin kuin nuori vaadin. Ei tiennyt isänsä kodossa, miehellähän mennessänsä, että oli noita synnyltänsä. Vatsassaan paha valta, kerviken seinälle uhrasi, maderekalle valkkovasan, siitä peurana tunturin juoksi, kunnes koitti hetki.
I did a little research into the film after I watched it because it struck me as kind of being like, and it's like, here you have this horror movie that's in Lapland, and it has all these trappings of like what you would expect to be Lapland culture up in the far north, near, I guess, Finland, really. And it's like, I was expecting like they were going to take a inspiration from a folklore legend, because a lot of folklore can be kind of horrific in its own way, just kind of make a horror movie out of that. And it's like, that could be really neat. But when you get right down into it, it's just a werewolf movie with a reindeer instead. And there's a legend about a white reindeer in Lapland culture, but it's not even legend. It's more like, no, it's a good luck symbol. But we're going to take that and we're going to add the Hollywood werewolf and vampire movie on top of it. I'm like, was this the most interesting thing you could do? Because to me, it just kind of played out very straight and in a very uninteresting way. What do you think?
Well, can you just off the top of your head think of like a folklore movie? And I'm specifically talking about folklore. Can you think of a folklore film just like that isn't kind of based in horror movie or horror at this point?
Well, I mean,
it's few and far between.
I think you may be onto something there. It's like, because when I hear folklore, you do kind of put the play button going on the kind of sitting around a campfire mode where everyone's trying to scare each other, and that is kind of what a lot of it ends up being.
I don't know why, but it especially seems to happen with, northern type movies. You have like Midsommar, which is a horror movie based on Scandinavian folklore stuff. And the Scandinavian people that have talked about it, they're like, look, it's a good movie, but it's kind of just like, takes this big old dump over all of our culture. And that's not cool. You also have a couple other movies. There's one, it's about a moose, I think, really. And so like, I don't think this started that genre. I want to make that clear, but it is kind of just, it's a drop in the bucket kind of thing at this point.
It's one thing when one culture kind of takes a dump on someone else's culture doing that. But in this case, I think they kind of did it to themselves. It's a Finnish film. You put a overlay from Hollywood on top of something that ostensibly could have been really interesting that way. And here's what's really disappointing for me. Is that I am not really a fan of a lot of like, werewolf or vampire films, especially the werewolf ones. Some of them just kind of take all the agency out of the main character. So it's just like they're fated to be doomed. And maybe that's the message, but it's like, this film really, really leans into this heavily. It's like, you've got this woman, Prita, who she's apparently in the beginning was a bit unclear because it's kind of wordless and the narration that's going over it that we heard in the intro here, it's just kind of going on about what ends up being the actual story proper itself, even though they're showing you what is ostensibly, I guess, her mother giving birth to her and going through these things. And
yeah.
And so it's like, it was a little unclear the first time. My wife actually thought that was foreshadowing what was the woman herself, what was going to come at the end. So she kept expecting the Preeta to be like pregnant at some point and be giving birth to somebody because that's what we saw in the beginning. But it's like that's how unclear it was.
Yeah.
And so, but it's like she's fated from birth to be cursed. Although it takes an extra nudge because she had to go to a shaman for reasons which I will get into in a little bit because something about how that went down was a little bit unsettling in that too.
What you're getting at is something that I actually talk about, in my own notes, like the next part here, which is like, this is a simple story. It really is like a super simple story. It's got a super simple theme, super simple lesson to it. At the beginning, there are certain issues, and we'll get into those issues in a moment, but there are certain big issues this movie definitely does have that it could have figured itself out before this and probably been a better movie. And that's not to say that the movie's like terrible or anything like that. I want to make that very clear. But it could have, like, you have something that is okay and probably had the ability to be great.
When you said themes, I kind of had to laugh a little bit because the only theme I think I could think of is don't deny your wives intimacy because if you do, she may go off and go get a shaman and turn into a white reindeer to kill the tribe.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
You know,
yeah. The really the theme of this movie, in my opinion, anyways, like when you think of folklore and you think of myth, in my mind, when I think about myth, I always just go directly to Greek myth. And oftentimes, when you read a Greek myth, like the lesson is, oh, you know, if something bad happens, like you should have done this or you should have been careful of this, and that's where you get in with this particular movie. Is like the ultimate lesson, or like one of the ultimate lessons is, at least right there at the beginning, is like kind of be careful what you wish for. Again, one of those like cliche lessons because that's what happens. Like,
let's talk about the motive which she goes. That the reason why she goes to the shaman in the first place. And to me, I'm like, it's hard for me to relate to. Maybe it's just like because yes, her husband has to go off and herd reindeer. That's his job. And maybe she could have gone with him a few times
yeah,
too, if that would have eased the difference between them. But it's like, by all extent, she's not like afraid she's going to lose him, as far as I can tell, because he's been
yeah,
faithful. He's been nothing
they
but
love each
faithful.
other.
They love each other. He's been nothing but faithful. So the only thing left is the intimacy thing. It's like, lady,
She wants to be more desirable for her husband. It comes down to, it's about greed, really, and selfishness. That's the lesson. Now, I don't think it's very well drawn out. I want to make that clear because, like, we don't really, like, I have some major issues with this movie, like, when it comes to what happens after that. Like, to me, almost everything's up to that is fine. And like I said, even though it's like, it's a bit ridiculous and it comes out of the blue, like, that's kind of how myth works at times. It's like, why did you think that? Like, what was in your brain when you decided to do or say that? And it really just comes down to like, hey, this is what happened to this person. This is the lesson that we learned from this. So it's like, be careful what you wish for, and be happy with what you already have. Because if you're greedy, things can go awry. And in this movie, you could be turned into a white reindeer.
and yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's like not just that, but a vampiric, carnivorous white reindeer,
Yeah.
apparently. Yeah, because when it's like she has this, the movie does this thing where she's like, she's starting to transform, but it's like she gets a little extra long fingernails and she has extra long canines, which I'm not sure reindeer, I guess they might have, some ungulates like that do have sharper pointier teeth like horses do, I guess, but I don't know, but it's like, it just feels so forced in that respect. Yeah. And I can hear what you're saying about the culture thing too. And there's shorthand that folk culture inserts that the local culture will be more familiar with. It just doesn't translate necessarily right instantaneously to another culture. So I will cop to the fact that I could be missing layers of visual, representation of Lap culture that is more indicative of this kind of a universal vice, but in a particular expression that I'm not familiar with. And that would do at least something for me. I guess because I don't have that. This
Yeah.
is one of those things. It's like that. It makes it harder to engage with the material when it's that specific. When it's not made clear for the wider audience what the folklore means to the local culture. So,
And see, to agree with your point there, like you said, you were looking things up. I was looking things up, and I could not find where this is connected to, other than like the gods that they pray to.
mhm.
But I mean, you found a little bit more than me. It's like, hey, you have something about someone turning into a reindeer, but it was not a bad story.
And the turning into a reindeer thing isn't even part of the culture from what I could find. It's just the fact that that
Yeah,
white reindeers are good luck symbols, which is odd because it's a good luck
yeah.
symbol that's becomes a point of like, killing and death.
It's kind of one of my gripes with like when certain like characters become they go into the public domain.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, what you see created out of that is not anything good. You see like what if horror movie version. Like they have the Winnie the Pooh franchise, not franchise, but the Winnie the Pooh character became public domain, and immediately we have a horror Winnie the Pooh movie.
Are you kidding me?
I don't think it's called Winnie the Pooh. No, I'm not kidding you at all. It's like it's got its own little franchise now. Like I guess it was good enough. Same thing happened with Popeye. Someone's doing the same thing with Steamboat Willie, like
I
that particular Mickey Mouse
I
short.
think
You know, I'm not. It's and that's been a gripe of mine is that happens too often. It's like, what if this, except incredibly evil? Again, like
oh
this isn't public domain, but that's what a lot of Superman, like alternate Superman stories are now. What if Superman was evil? So the reason why, and what do you get out of what if Superman was evil? You get things like The Boys, and again, I'm not saying that these are terrible. I'm just saying you get things like The Boys. You get things like Invincible. You get multiple evil Superman stories. Like there's a lot of that happens, and not that I hate it all. I want to make that very clear. I just kind of have a problem with why does everything have to be what if this except bad?
yeah.
Like it doesn't, you don't have to do that. And that's what I feel like we see a lot of times with some of these stories that are taken and either reused or inspired by and whatnot. And I put that squarely in this camp as well. This particular movie, it's like, what if the White Reindeer, which was a good luck charm, was actually an evil person, not an evil person, but a crazy someone that we turned into it and they killed people.
It
Like
almost
it's
feels
like
like, what does that say about us as a species? That we can't. You never see the thing around. It's like, what if we took an evil thing and tried to? What would it be like if it was good? No, that would be boring. It's like, no, we have
yeah.
to take all the anything good examples. What if Frodo was really evil? What if, what if Luke Skywalker? Well,
What
they
if
did
what
they
if
did kind of do that with Luke Skywalker a little bit.
Yeah. The opposite it could be is like, let's see a story where it's actually a good luck charm, where it actually helps out. My major issues with this story isn't what happens with her. It's not even like, it's everything that happens afterwards. Because, in my opinion, one of my key things was like, it doesn't feel like it knows what it wants to do with her. And in my notes, my original notes, anyways, one of the things that I say is like, it asks questions like, is she crazy? Like, or has she succumbed to it? Like, fully succumbed to it? Is she struggling with it? Is it slowly turning her into madness? Or is she trying to find a cure? And at times, it's like the answer to all of those questions is just kind of like, yeah, but which one is it?
But
Just
which
yeah,
one?
because like the
Yeah.
hunter goes, yeah. I remember that scene where the hunter goes and tries to take her out, and then she turns back into the woman, and she's like cackling, like that she's that this is aha, and so he freaks out. The gun explodes, and then he's left kind of dazed and confused, and then later on they're at like this party campfire thing,
Oh
and
yes.
he sees her, and then she's not like, "Ah ha ha, you've seen me." No, she's like, "Oh, I've got to run away. Like he might get me."
Yeah.
And you're sitting there going, "Well, which is it? Are you mad or are you not mad?"
And
And then like later on, again, they finally figure it out it's her, and then again, a very cliche thing happens at the end. It's like who takes her out? Well, her loyal, loving husband.
which I saw coming a mile away.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It's one of those things. Of course, he's the one that took her out. But when I'm sitting there going, like, where is this dude? Like, did it feel like he just disappeared for like a good chunk of the movie?
It did for a while, yeah. And about that scene with the
Yeah,
campfire too, where the guy recognizes her. It's like here you have two options, dude. You realize you have this realization that the woman who is sitting across from you is the witch that tried to kill you. You have option A, which is you calmly lean over to your friends and it's like she's the one. Or do you take option B and just like hysterically lunge at her, causing everyone to think that you're crazy? and having to throw you out. And that's not the only instance of something like that happen. It's like people have these kind of, it's like if you jump into the worst possible, least measured kind of thought processes and reactions. But yeah, it's like, and it was predictable. Every time the reindeer leads her victims to Evil Valley, it's like, you know what? If you want to find the reindeer, you might want to hang around Evil Valley.
And it doesn't really help when it's a super short movie, and we're talking like it's only an hour and 8 minutes, and
Yeah.
there is actually kind of credits before and sort of credits afterwards. Not very long, obviously, because that's not invented quite yet. But I mean, it's definitely not a very long movie. Now, I will say some good things about this movie real quick. One of the good things about this movie is that I really like the scenery. I thought that was done really well. As well. Like, I mean, of course, I think you probably get a little bit too much of like reindeer running around shots, and we're talking about herds of reindeer, but it is what it is. But it does show the beauty of Finland. Another thing is too, like I knew going into it, like, but I already kind of have an idea of this culture, and the reason why is actually the movie Klaus on Netflix, because the Sami people are actually in the Klaus movie, and that's an animated film. They represent the first elves and everything. We're not talking about Klaus, but I'm just like they have that same type of clothing, and you
The
see that same
Laplander.
type of clothing in this. And I thought, oh, that's like so very done very well at least. So like I did like the shots, I like the clothing and everything. And I thought that was I thought that was something really kind of neat with this movie.
I will give credit to the costuming, and it's like in the and to a certain degree the cinematography and the landscape. I think for me personally, Lapland landscapes I think are going to be kind of like one of those things. A little bit goes a long way. They had this one really long tracking
Mm-hmm.
panning shot where they just go full 360 around in a loop. It almost feels like they must have gone around twice because that thing lasted forever. And it's like I could have done half as much and gotten the same point. Yes, it's desolate. I will go halfway on that point. There is
Yeah,
something about it that captures the feel of Lapland culture very much, at least in the aesthetics. I think it did manage to
yeah.
capture that. So I will give it a point for that. So and I'm not regretful having I'm not like super like regretful having watched it at all. It was an experiment.
Oh yeah, yeah,
It's an experiment.
yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
well, folks, it looks like Ryan's computer just kind of just cut out all of a sudden. And since we never say die here, it's like, but we might do a partial retreat. I'm going to have to wrap this up solo. So, in essence, we both had very similar thoughts on the movie today. It was an interesting experiment in viewing Lapland culture in a horror movie setting. And basically, it comes down to a once and done. It's a bad dates for us. We don't regret seeing it at all. It's just not going to be something we come back to. At this time, we like to remind our listeners out there that if you're having a good time with Ryan and me dusting off these old movies in search of celluloid treasure, please do like and subscribe and comment. And of course, follow us on your podcast purveyor of choice. Tell us what you think we got wrong, and clue us in on a few titles you'd like us to see cover on future episodes, as long as they're available for free on Tubi or other similar sites, because this adventure comes with no strings attached. For next week's film, we have Intermezzo, which is a 1939 film. Stars Ingrid Bergman, so you know Ryan's going to give it fortune and glory. Leslie Howard, Edna Best, and John Halliday. Directed by George Radoff. And Tubi says, forbidden love is no match for marriage when a concert violinist falls in love with his daughter's charismatic piano teacher and takes her on tour. So, yeah, sounds interesting, and we hope you do join us for that. Please tune in again, and hopefully Ryan's computer problems will be all fixed and solved by then. And on Ryan's behalf, goodbye, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye, folks.